Okay, I'm making this video now. Obviously, I have a great deal more to say. It's hard to be so injured and underneath such a lie that prevents me from getting proper health care for these injuries. Dr. Daniel Kraus has since retired, so he's kind of untouchable. And what I had intended for today was to talk about the fallout from the lie that was made in 2005 by Dr. Daniel Kraus, saying that I was obviously misdiagnosed, but because they couldn't see the injuries then, which are so visible now, but because they couldn't see the injuries then, they were going to put on my file, on my medical file, a label that would garner me the financial assistance from the government enough for me to have the money to heal these old injuries and to have enough time to heal these old injuries. But it's 2020 and I'm still sitting here with a broken back, pain in my wrists, pain in my legs. I've been stretching almost every single day since that time, or even before that time. Every day now I do the waterfall pose from Deborah Devine's program, Healing Yoga, and that is the waterfall pose, and it is very subtle and it is very it's very healing. I can see evidence of the injury surfacing to my skin, and especially the bruising at my leg. I was going to show you the injuries at some point, and I may do so in this video, but it will take a little bit of conniving. I speak against these psych drugs. I speak against them on Facebook, and frankly, I get an awful lot of support, but there are some who resist what I say, and as I've indicated in the past, they love their drugs, and while they're on them, they're a little bit spellbound, as Dr. Bregan has coined, because they think their drugs are really helping them, where actually when they converse with me, their words have unfortunately little sense put together, and yet I suppose they think they're quite fine. So yesterday, that's what happened, is I was speaking against Effexor, which is a drug I never took and never was prescribed, because it came later, after I had gotten off all the psych drugs in 2001, and I was never prescribed any psych drugs after that. I tapered over the course of 1 year, after 11 years of having been polydrugged on all different combinations of drugs to try and find a way to quote-unquote help me. And when I approached the psychiatric team with Dr. Kraus as head, the nurse was appointed to me to help me taper over the course of 1 year. And it was too rapid a taper, looking back in hindsight, because the time off the drugs for maybe 9 months, which is rather interesting because it's the course of the pregnancy to birth a baby. But in fact, I was, I guess, rebirthing myself. But I did fall into adrenal collapse, and I was as pale as the whiteness of a tissue Kleenex of some sort, you know, whatever brand you have in your country. I was as white as that, and my tongue would be coated in this thick white film, and that's the toxicity that's evident in your body when you have a coating of white film when you're in withdrawals. So it's important, again, to dilute that rising toxicity with good water. And that includes showers and cold packs and baths, as well as sipping water in adequate amounts for your body type during the day. It's better to sip it because then you'll know exactly how much you yourself need, because your body will actually, during withdrawals, when you drink the water, your body will want to sleep, and so you'll sleep, and then upon waking, this kind of cycle will go through again, because upon waking, the toxicity will be causing symptoms that scare you. Anyway, I'm speaking as an observer, and I'd rather speak as the subject. So what happened to me was terrifying. I and the psych team did not know about the long-term effects of withdrawal off these psych drugs. In fact, this is what Dr. Daniel Krauss said at one point. He said, "We do not know why these drugs do what they do. Moreover, we do not know what the long-term effects of withdrawal off these drugs are." So, unfortunately, this retired doctor is kind of immune from any contact, because there's just, no effective way of engaging him at all. And the other truth is that very few psychiatrists and very few family doctors who also prescribe these harmful psych drugs know that these drugs are harming the brain and the body. And I see that more and more younger doctors and even older doctors are seeing that these psych drugs do cause the mental disorders that they are purported to treat. Some kind of a light has gone on, but I'm dealing with the current practicing doctors, like psychiatrists, or one psychiatrist in particular, who I saw last year, and my family doctor, who I can't see this year, even though I was kind of scheduled to see my family doctor probably in June or July. I do hope to educate my own young family doctor on the fact that the psych drugs that he willfully prescribes, thinking that he's helping his patients, is actually causing an awful lot of harm. And now documentation is compiling rapidly in new films that are being made about doctor prescribed harm and the harms of psych drugs, in particular these psychiatric drugs. And the psychiatric drugs have changed over time. In the 90s, I was on combinations that no longer are used, and there are, well, not necessarily used like they were in the 90s, but with the newer drugs that they have, which are similar and based on the older drugs, the names are very different. And I see on Facebook, especially women, but they're a lot more vocal than the men, but men have also done personal videos of their suffering during withdrawal off these drugs, and the result for many of them, women and men, is the akathisia as the result of these drugs, which are neurotoxins, which do something like, well, for instance, when I was first drugged after the accident, it appeared to me that the numbing effects began, and pursuant to that, up until I stopped them. So when I stopped them, it was like this long strip of cushioning had been ripped off my spine, and my spine was raw and pulsating lava, hot lava like, and very painfully for several years, and in fact in waves of pain that would come from time to time. So these drugs will cushion the nerves, or make them, I would say, inactive, so that you really can't feel what's going on in your body. And not only that, you can't tell when you are interacting with others that your speech is impaired, and yet you will get ridicule and wonder why. Again, I'm speaking in third person here, but no, this is what happened to me as well. I think I want to focus on something more to my intention for making this video, and that is the lie by Dr. Daniel Kraus that he put on my medical file, which prevented me from getting treatment. And in 2002, that was rather evident. I found a new family doctor, a physician, and that was an exercise in futility. The injuries were really painful, and yet the file that was on that doctor's desk in front of him, with the label that was written there by Dr. Daniel Kraus, overshadowed anything that I said to this family doctor in 2002 way up into actually 2011. Now, it took me a long time to, well, I guess being an Aries, loyalty is something that we seem to do naturally, and yet I think that was misplaced. Loyalty is obvious, but by and large, the medical community are unaware of the harms that these drugs do, because they do not believe their patients, especially when they are given when these patients are given a label underneath psychiatry. Now, these labels under psychiatry are made up diagnoses based on opinion. The opinion of perhaps 9 people in one state in the United States, and this diagnostic and statistical manual is sold and has been sold since the 1980s. And by chance, I now have the DSM-3, and I looked at it, and to the backdrop of this book and me looking at it, I had seen a researcher who had written a book about these very people, and how they came to undertake and market the diagnostic and statistical manual for mental disorders for psychiatry. We're at the DSM-5, and it's a massive encyclopedic type of book, but there are no blood tests that they use. There are no scientific testing to prove a certain label of psychiatry, and there are vast labels of psychiatry, and I assert that every one of them is a made-up opinion of a very small group of people, and therefore has no validity in our medical communities. They have tried to make themselves important, and they've achieved that. But decades ago, they were not viewed by their peers as well as they are today. In fact, they shouldn't be viewed well at all, because the pharmaceutical companies, they are the driving force behind psychiatry and the drugging of patients on these harmful chemicals, which, when prescribed, create the illness they're purported to treat. In fact, what has happened in my own life, and what has happened in so many others who talk about this, having been in psychiatry, their diagnoses have changed over time. And this happens when more drugs are added. And when you add more drugs, you toxify the brain even further. And what will happen is that you will get people who are psychotic to the extreme, and this is the effects of these drugs. I spoke of my neighbor's brother, who is now in jail after murdering his entire family who were in the house with him there. And this is something that, well, in mainstream, they believe it's the person. And it's not the person. It's the toxification of these drugs to the brain of this person. These chemicals are credibly, oh, my neck cracked. I wonder if that actually was audible on this video. Okay. See, I do have pervasive injuries throughout my body, as would happen when you're rolled upon by a massive hybrid draft horse, which I was in the accident. So yeah, back in 1988, just after the accident, the resident doctors missed an awful lot. And then I was so drugged, I couldn't feel my body on these psychiatric medications. So yesterday I was speaking on Facebook. I guess you'd say just texting, not speaking in an audible voice, but we're writing back and forth. And what I was saying was supported by so many, and yet there was only one dissenter who really did not want to hear that her drug effects would cause her brain damage, and ultimately land her in a bad place where she could lose an awful lot. I do have a friend I haven't heard from or seen in the last few years, because he's gotten involved with a woman. Is this revealing too much? But I will not mention his name. He's involved with a married woman who's a psychologist who wants out of her marriage, who has a son. And I heard from him about this several years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and she was his psychologist, I assume. They knew each other for 4 years before getting involved, and this man has been on Effexor, the drug Effexor, as an antidepressant for decades. And he went to Paris, France, for a time and was without his drug and found it intolerable to be without his drug. In fact, the symptoms without it were, as he said, making him crawl under the bed until he got help. And I guess the help was being reinstated somehow, somewhere. I don't know how he managed in Paris, France to do that, but one can assume it had to have been done. So I would also assume that he is still taking the Effexor, and this has damaged his brainstem. And you can see the effects because he has tardive dyskinesia, which means he flicks his tongue while he speaks from each corner of his mouth frequently. but because he's been diagnosed with a bad heart and still smokes cigarettes, he is not thinking about getting off the Effexor again at all. And in fact, this year he turned 60, and he did say about 4 years ago to me, he asked me if I feared turning 60 like he did, because he thought maybe I thought like he did, and I said, no. I look forward to living as long as I possibly can, and 60 is just 1 year out of all those years I plan on living, and I would think of it as a milestone and a happy one, because I nearly died so many times on those psych drugs in my 30s. So now in September he will turn 60, and I remember what he said. He said that he hopes he dies at 60. He's been on this antidepressant for decades, and I know that an antidepressant will make you a bit morbid in your mind and depressed. So I would throw my hands up in the air. I do have a way to contact him and wish him a happy birthday, and I hope I shall find him well. I don't know if he'll answer, because he seems to be thoroughly involved with this married woman and all her issues in separating from her husband, who also knows about the affair, I'm told. Anyway, so the drug Effexor. This woman on Facebook loved it. My friend, my long-term friend, can't leave it. And I know someone in Scotland who did stop it and went through such hellish withdrawals for years. But she feels that she's got permanent damage, even 6 years after stopping, or now maybe 8 years, or probably more than that by now. So it's a very damaging drug. This doctor's lie preventing me from getting proper treatment for these injuries took place from the time that I had come off the drugs. I was in the throes of withdrawal when I found this new family doctor who refused to treat me for these injuries, refused to refer me to a specialist for these injuries, and in Quebec that is actually criminal. But I had no wherewithal to fight that, because going through the proper channels, the doctor who lied held precedence over my life up until about last year. But I am unwilling to use last year's report that I received from the psychiatrist, even though it does absolve me of this label, because he's not credible. He didn't listen to what I said. I said I was told by Dr. Daniel Kraus that he realized I was misdiagnosed from the very beginning, but this psychiatrist chose to believe that the hospitalizations while I was on these drugs meant that I had a certain illness, which I did not have. And I refuse to use that statement. I want a bigger, better report. I don't know if I'm going to get one. And the other thing is, he said that this psychiatrist said that I fell off a horse, and that's also a blatant error, because that's not true. It's a lie. Well, maybe he doesn't know it's a lie, but it is. He just wasn't listening. And I didn't see him for all that long for him to make this report. And he was already not kindly disposed towards me when I arrived. And in fact, when I've gotten x-rays that were requisitioned from my current family doctor, I went to one radiology clinic in that same building where my family doctor works, and I realized that this radiologist who was manhandling me and hurting me was against me, disliked me for having done something that actually I'd done during the time, I would say around 2011, when I finally ditched this do-nothing family physician that I'd found in 2002. I and several of my friends, at least 9 letters were sent to the Collège des Médecins, which is the brotherhood of the doctors, Collège des Médecins, in Montreal and Quebec, and nothing came of it because the lie takes precedent over any truth I can tell. And throughout, with my new doctor, since I acquired him sometime, I think, in 2013, took a while to get a new doctor because in Quebec we had a real problem with getting doctors for people at all. There was a quote-unquote doctor shortage, and that has since been looked into by the powers that be to try to rectify that. However, it's still kind of hard to get a new doctor when you don't like your current doctor. I do like my current young doctor. I just know that a confrontation is pending, because I won't back down from what I say about these psych drugs causing the mental illness that they're purported to treat. Not only that, being so harmful, and the withdrawals off them being so terrifying that many people can't handle it and end their lives because of it. So a lot of people who were given psychiatric drugs and come off them, which is also supported by their medical overseers, who witness the person going through withdrawal but think that it's the mental illness resurfacing, and so they reinstate them, or the person refuses to be reinstated and ditches those medical people and goes off on their own to continue to suffer through withdrawals. And some of them who do have severe withdrawal symptoms do choose to commit suicide, because it's very painful, it's very intolerable, it's hard to endure. I endured these withdrawals, and I was very brave, and I've been very determined, despite the pains that I've had day in, day out for the last 19 years after I came off those numbing drugs, and felt the pain so badly and consistently, and chronically for going on 20 years. I refuse to give up. I refuse to capitulate to any really very strong mind-numbing drugs. So it's a bit of a tricky situation, because with the stresses of life, and the stresses of having become the companion to a rapidly aging, very nice old man, 34 years my senior, for a very long time. It's been 15 years now that I've been his companion with him, and more steadily since 2011. It was a very long time, but it was hard on me, incredibly hard on me. So it's been a rough road to go on for me. But I've begun speaking out, and that I find does take some of the pain from my body away, because I'm speaking it out. So there's something to that, to speaking your truth and relieving yourself and your body, your physical body, of burdens. Well, there are the remaining structural defects in my body, such as my wrists and so on. And I might add that coming off the psych drugs in initial withdrawal, I mentioned this to someone else who had a very bad accident, and she agreed with me that this is what she felt too. Well, early in initial withdrawal, I said that I felt like my hands were in ill-fitting gloves. Now, though, it's better, because I've been doing this stretching, and I really do enjoy Deborah Devine's healing yoga. She's really got it. She's with it. She's doing a great work. And another person I follow, at least just looking at her videos for future reference, is Miranda Esmond White, with her classical yoga, or classical stretch. She's also someone who's a powerful healer. Donna Eden with energy medicine is also a powerful healer. These are physical things that you can do. Another person I have followed in tandem with the one guru who, although dead some years ago, at the age of 91, who was the huge influence on my life, the pivotal reason for my transformation into a life which is far more peaceful, far more abundant, far more pleasant, far more supportive, is what I would have to admit is the answer to a prayer. Because in initial withdrawal, my concentration was so bad that I couldn't read a book. So when I was awake and not passing out from the pain, I took my books that I had in university from my time at McGill in the Department of Religious Studies. And one of those books was The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. And I got through it, amazingly. But what came from that was his immense admiration for one religious group who were doing marvelous things, and that was the group in the 1880s, late 1880s, or maybe mid 1880s, because this book was written before the turn of the 20th century. I think I can assert. I might be wrong on that, but I do believe he was writing towards the end of the 19th century. And we have a lot of writings from the 19th century, like Ralph Waldo Emerson, who, when you read him, you can see that he also was a convert to the idea that was being put forward during that time, pervasively, actually, which was that when you manage your mind and you think good thoughts, those good thoughts are what will manifest in your life. And ultimately, that thoughts become things. There are an awful lot of authors from way back then. Florence Scovel Shinn was someone who was akin to a mentor for the woman who wrote the book that I found, that I had in my possession after reading Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. And this was You Can Heal Your Life by Louise L. Hay. This woman is at the top of my list of powerful healers in my life, because when I did read her book, and the foreword said that when you do begin to read the book, you may want to throw it against the wall, which actually I did do. And then I picked it up again, determined to get well, because what if this stuff worked? She had an index in there of healing statements for the illnesses that had manifested in a person's body, or say in my body. So she had this one pivotal book, and yes, yesterday I was promoting it, and this one young woman who loved her effects or would have none of it, she thought I was advertising, and that's all the reason that I wanted to do, was just advertise something. But I must add that having said that this book helped me to save my own life back in 2002 when I almost died with the amount of toxicity that my organs couldn't handle, after stopping all the psych drugs in April of 2001. April 1st, 2001 was the last dose of any psych drug. And by that fall of 2001, my adrenals collapsed. But by 2002, and since no one knew what these withdrawals would be off these psych drugs, I was learning solo by the seat of my own coattails, sliding down a slippery slope. But I caught myself, or my prayers resulted in me not slipping any further, because this book was a godsend. It was, and has been, and is still my one go-to book, because it's based on the law of attraction. It's based on the idea that we co-create our own lives with Source, because Source is inside us and in each one of us. And what we think about individually, we bring about individually. What we think about, we bring into our own physical experience. I guess you can see all the books around me, and that it's like a cocoon. And yes, I've had to cocoon myself once again, because I've had to protect my body. So my body still hurts quite a bit. And in my building, I've had misunderstandings to deal with. Yeah, I frequently speak to God, to the divine realm, and say, after enduring those withdrawals, it's just not right. It's evil that I should be called something that I am not, and something that I never was, and that this lie needs to be exposed immediately. So I believe that there are people like myself who are rising up to raise the consciousness of humanity. I have a particular area of concern, and I guess you've got others who are way beyond that, who are helping others manifest the life of their dreams, like Reagan Hillier, or the people from Mind movies, or the people from I've mentioned them before, and I can't think of them right now. I see Vision's face, but I can't remember. It's so close to what the other ones are saying that they are. Anyway, yeah, it is all about our mind. Our driver is spirit. We are, as Wayne W. Dyer has said, spiritual beings living a physical existence in a physical body. So we are spiritual beings first and foremost. And that's where the key to life lies. When you, with your own determination from your spiritual beingness, decide to heal your brain, and magnify its powers of memory and concentration. Obviously, I'm a little bit compromised there right now. This marathon of pain is not easy. Pain makes you stupid. That's what I say frequently. I say pain makes you stupid, and I get a lot of yays for that. Ayes and yays. Yes, that's true. And I suppose I should be drinking water because that would also help to hydrate my body. It would also help my brain to think more clearly. I was thinking that I wasn't really ready to do this video because what I have to speak on is personally traumatic. Having had this lie overshadow my truth for this length of time, making it almost impossible to get treatment. It's been very stressful. I had meant to say yes, that my current doctor had referred me to a rehabilitation clinic nearby where I live, and that 9-week course that I enlisted in, it was cut short because of this lie on my medical file. It was obvious to me that when I wasn't going to the classes and I was in the lunchroom or cafeteria type place with these vending machines and toasters and so on, there was somebody who had volunteered there, or maybe was working there at this rehabilitation center in that room, and was assigned to watch me in particular because of this label in my medical file. Watch and see if she's really going to make problems anywhere. No, he made me nervous. He made the group of people that I was with actually nervous too. So I wasn't the only one who, dropped the milk, so to speak. So the 9-week course turned into something that was only 3 weeks because a social worker, a young woman, heard that I had complained about this supervisor in the lunchroom who had made us nervous, who was most likely the one who pointed out on my medical file after looking into it that there was this label of psychosis pinned to me. And she went off the handle in one instance I hadn't seen before. But, it's funny because when I was being accepted for the program, there was a panel, and this social worker was there, sitting at the back, and she was pointed out to be one of those who would be working with me as a team to help me with these injuries. I felt something from her that she might become a problem while I was being interviewed to be accepted into the program that one day. And then I was finally accepted, and I didn't see her as a problem. She had someone who was another woman, a little bit older, who was working with her. But this social worker took me into a room by herself, a little interviewing room, and I know about these tiny interview rooms. I didn't know about it for the rehabilitation center, but for another institution I had been in, one that was somewhat larger. This was only like a tiny booth with a little table and folding doors, closeted type of thing. So like the dome of silence in Get Smart kind of thing. But she became enraged in that little room. Enraged because, well, I think what was happening was behind that, and in retrospect, that day they were having a fundraiser at the rehabilitation center, and they were being scrutinized for their work. And their funding was being threatened to be cut. And there were few English-speaking people there, and they were whittling down. So when I was provoked to just toss the program, after days after this social worker erupted because I refused to wear a bra. When you got a broken back, a bra, you know, that's where the ribs are, and that's, and I do my best to be discreet and modest and not you know, I've got a scarf on. I'm not wearing a bra because it hurts. That's where it really hurts. My upper back really collapsed. The whole rib cage collapsed, and this was several years ago. So it's been a long journey. And my back, I can make it crack and pop. Don't know if you'll hear it, but it would do that for me today because I still have a lot more healing to do. And it's years after that. So just to say that retired psychiatrists lie on my medical file stopped that program from being of any benefit to me. In fact, it was harmful at the last, you know, everything that surprised me also caused flare-ups in my right side especially. Very painful flare-ups of because when you have stress, the cortisol rises and the pain amplifies. That's why it's been difficult to deal with the old man who is now 92, and who I met when I was still requiring myself to do far too much within this broken body of mine, and going to church, a United Church, to sing in a choir. With the withdrawals, I can say also that it took an awful long time for the sedative effects to leave my body, because even in the withdrawals, I wasn't aware of how badly hurt I was until all of the drugs were out. And it took a long time. I say that the withdrawals, to be clear about it, to land a date on it for termination, were 5 years long, because the brain fog lifted in one day after the 5 years of waves of withdrawal and rising toxicity and me going through all that. My brain just cleared in one day, like a curtain rising on a stage. It was just like that, almost instantaneous. I felt it. And I have some experience um, yeah, I've had quite a bit of pain. And at times it's been too much for me, and um, uh, I have agreed uh, to friends' offers of cannabis, but I have since eschewed all that. I will not go near it um, for years now. But I recall one time when I thought, okay, I'll try this, when it was offered to me, and there must have been fentanyl in it, because I went immediately into, and I only took 2 puffs. Shouldn't have taken 2 puffs. And inside myself, I dismissed the idea that I shouldn't take 2 puffs, because there was something inside me saying, don't take 2 puffs. But I took 2 puffs, and the person who shared it with me was already a long-term pot smoker. And fast forward on that spell of real intense suffering, this young man who had shared the pot with me, the one, what do you call it? It's not a spliff. That's for hash, isn't it? Joint. Okay. This one joint with me brought me down to my old man's apartment, not my apartment, because I actually needed company, and I needed to get into the tub. And when I was in the tub, in the bath, so this young man brought me down 3 flights in the building to my old man's apartment, inside the door, in a wheelchair. That's how badly affected I was. And when I got into the bath, I noticed that my brain was like it was clearing in levels, like going down real stairs, rather forcefully, like real levels, 3 times, until I could stop shaking. So at first, when I felt the effects of this joint, the 2 puffs, I was feeling I felt that I was sweating profusely. I was shaking. I was feeling terror within my body, and I just had to stay still. And eventually I did go to the room there where another person who was in the apartment, an older woman who is a good friend to me still. I couldn't, I was really hot, and so I was seated in front of the air conditioner in her bedroom, and they watched me, and I knew I was going to throw up if I looked at a light, or if I turned my body, and in fact I did. And once I threw up, actually all over myself, I was able to move my body some more, but not enough to walk. So there came the wheelchair, And then when I was in the tub, that's what I felt. It was like levels of my brain trying to readjust themselves, like stairs, like a flight of stairs, of three big stairs. Like I can envision something concrete with um, um, quite a bit of effort that you need to make to get to each step. So there I was, lying in the tub and um, descending these stairs in my brain. So psychiatric drugs are a similar type of thing to overcome. I would never trust the cannabis again in future, no matter what. And discussing it with my doctor, my current doctor, when I had mentioned that someone in my building knew that I was suffering quite a bit and could line me up with doctors online who would assess my situation and prescribe cannabis. Doctor prescribed marijuana. And when I discussed this with my current doctor, he said, no, there's too much chance for psychosis. And you know what? After having my experience of that cannabis laced with probable fentanyl, I had no problem accepting his advice, suggestion, declaration that this would not be something that I would get. I was fine with it because I have books on energy healing. I have books on the tapping of the body, which is something also that toward the end of Louise L. Hay's life, before she died at the age of 91 a few years ago, she was promoting this tapping method to heal the body. And so I have books on that, and I have an encyclopedia on alternate healing modalities with Eastern healing methods and so on. And while I've been living here, and when I go outside and do my meditation, I chanced upon a meeting with a woman, a lovely young Sri Lankan woman who was also knowledgeable about the things that I was knowledgeable about, and how in fact did I chance upon the idea of palmistry being a useful tool to heal the body, to know about our progress in healing the body, or even in our creating of our future timeline, which it does. So she was impressed by that I do realize that the map of our hands is indeed, as the Old Testament books in the Bible have said, that God declared that he has written our maps of our lives on our hands. That wasn't taken out of the Bible. An awful lot has been. Well, that opens up Pandora's box when I say that. because then my sister's Mormons come in, don't they? Anyway, anyone who reads the Bible will know that it's filled with a lot of contradictions, but there are precious and pricelessly helpful verses of great wisdom in our Bible nonetheless. And a lot of what is in the New Testament and attributed to Jesus as having said is of massive importance for living our lives here. Just such great instructions on how to live. And for me, for my part, my Savior is Jesus Christ. That who has answered my prayers. That is where I see that I have a connection, and I am open to the idea that this is not true for everybody. Okay, although Christians do believe that anyone who does not accept Jesus Christ as their personal Savior it is lost, because He is the way, the truth, and the life. However, that's what came to us. Up to this modern time, who are given the Christian doctrine. Shall I say at this time that the Christian doctrine is perverted in a lot of churches, and the minds of men have perverted it. But my biggest bugbear is the evil that has infiltrated churches, Christian churches, and so-called Christian churches across the board. At its base, and this is personally impactful for me to be aware that my true biological sibling, not my half-brother or my half-brothers, but the one who comes from the same mother and father, is trapped in a fabrication that she cannot see as a huge, insidious lie. I don't think I'll go on more about that. It is sad. But there are a lot of traps that are laid out there that are false Christs or false lights. And one of them is psychiatry. It's not a light. It's an abyss to fall into. Psychiatry is an abyss. You get in there through the door and you plummet. And you fall from grace, and you fall out with your relationships with others, even your own family. If you're married, well, you're on these chemicals, that marriage won't last. So it breaks up marriages, it breaks up families, and ultimately, the worst that it can do is it can make a family member murderous and kill. And the mainstream news will not report. Perhaps they are completely blind to the truth, or maybe they are willfully blind to the fact that these psychiatric drugs are making people psychotic and homicidal or suicidal. Still, we've got people in prison, and what I say is going to cause a huge ruckus, because we've got people in prison who are only there because of what they did while they were on psych drugs. And now they're in prison and still being given psych drugs. And, well, psych drugs are used as a chemical restraint or a chemical straitjacket. You can put someone into a chemical state of immobility on these drugs. You could do that in the 90s, and you can do that even more so now that we're into the second decade in the 2000s. (2020). Were it to be perfect 2020 vision, were it clear seeing for all of us, should it be so, may it be so, because an awful lot of lies should be exposed right now. We have a current world that requires an awful lot of consciousness raising. If we are, and some are, accepting prescriptions of psych drugs this year, their minds will be affected by them. Their cognition will be impaired. Rather immediately, once these drugs take effect, and more decline is ensuing, most likely from drugs that will be added because of the symptoms that come up from the initial drug that was given. You'll even see people rocking back and forth on these drugs, and it's not the person, it's the drugs. They'll be sitting in a cross-legged position, or maybe even a fetal position, and they'll be rocking. My friend, who was a Mormon, who was called a schizophrenic, who was among several Mormons who were medicated, none the least of which was me in my 30s. I'm getting physical pain from talking about this. Jamie died in 2015. He was a good friend. And I know he died from the effects of the drugs that he was given. I also know that on this day where I knew I was going to make another video, I was determined to make a video today, especially. It's the 22nd of August, and in 1930, my mother was born on this day. And had she not been given, prescribed Valium and taken it for over 30 years, every single day, she could be alive today. She'd be 90. And the way my family and their longevity goes, it's possible that she could be alive today had she not been given Valium. It's a benzodiazepine. So this is an impactful day for me, and has been, because in Montreal in 2017, I was reminded of this on this morning when I awakened. I put on my glasses and I picked up my Motorola device, and there, after I keyed in my code to open it, was something saying there were photos to remind me of what happened in 2017, and we had a microburst, a tornado that felled trees all the way a good long stretch of the area of Montreal where I live, and it was on the 22nd. And the funny thing was, the next year in 2018, there was another big wind. I noticed it. It's like it fell on the 22nd, and I thought, well, gosh, Mom, you're pretty powerful. So, but today, in 2020, it's an idyllic, peaceful day, no wind thus far. And I think the calm is being ushered in to the planet, because we are in a new age. And I know that the planetary alignments have an awful lot to do with that. There are new planetary alignments that haven't been surrounding us in either decades or hundreds of years or even eons. We are experiencing the effects of these planets, and I'm really enjoying the idea that Pluto, the destroyer rebuilder, is wreaking some havoc on planet Earth right now, because it's out with the old systems that no longer work for us and rebuilding to systems that do work for us, and exposing the lies. Oh, so yes, I do take time to listen to encouraging words from astrologers that I have access to on the internet. I like to be encouraged, and this I find astrologically is encouraging. Yes, there will be tumultuous times, but the light is coming in, where we will learn about some very dark stuff, and we are, and our current medical system is due for an overhaul as well. It just has to, because pills from Big Pharma in a majority of ways in speaking aren't helping us human beings. Mm. Mm. Well, so um, I think I should go back to speaking about this lie on my medical file and what has come of it as the stressful effects of that lie, and trying to get treatment for these old injuries instead of going naturally to speaking esoterically about how we are having a lot of things revealed to us now. So, I hope to reveal that this lie is a lie on my medical file. Yes, this is what I had thought of. While I was online and on the social media site Facebook and in these groups where people are being helped to endure the effects of the withdrawals, the terrifying symptoms, and they are. We who have survived have gotten some benefit from reading Dr. Peter Bregin's books, and he's written an awful lot of books on the effects of psych drugs and how harmful they are. I think it was his first book that I actually did read, and I haven't read anything of his since, but I do hope to have others of his books and read them in my possession at some future date. But of course I can hear what he says because he's on YouTube, and I know that what he says is accurate. So speaking of Dr. Peter Breggin, a woman was telling, and I'm going to name her as Michelle, she was telling about what had happened to her when she decided to go to her family doctor or her psychiatrist, I can't remember which one it was, with a briefcase full of documentation, mostly what Peter Breggin had written, and show it to her then doctor. And what happened to her was, while she was doing this, disclosing this information to, I think it was a psychiatrist. It's more likely a psychiatrist, yes, because two medical staff apprehended her and took her to a psychiatric wing, and as they were doing so, threatened her with a syringe of some psychiatric medication, and effectively incarcerated her for several days in a psychiatric wing. She was able to tell her story after she was free from that, and I kind of know how she could free herself from that, and that was to play their game. But Peter Breggin, Dr. Peter Breggin will speak. Even now, I think he's 82. He could be 83, but he still speaks about these harmful psych drugs and these harmful labels and these bogus labels and the bogus scientific background, which doesn't exist, and the bogus idea of a chemical imbalance, because that doesn't exist. There's no blood test. It's simply opinion. So he is greatly supported, has a huge following, and in various countries he will speak probably via the internet, where other doctors want him to speak. Most notably, I've seen that Dr. Peter Gotcha, gotcha. Um, well, yeah, an English person in Montreal doesn't have much practice in English, I'll tell you that much, or any other language. Ooh. Dr. Peter Gotch, in either the Netherlands or Denmark, has gotten Dr. Peter Breggin to speak either over Skype or some vehicle on the internet, and even has had Robert Whitaker speak to people, audiences, where in, say, Northern Europe. Gosh, Europe is changing, isn't it? So he's trying to get the word out. And I think it was Finland who is the one country who has really understood that psych drugs do harm, because I don't think they use them. So let's hope that enlightenment causes waves and ripples further and beyond. So Michelle, when she went to her psychiatrist and spoke about Peter Breggin, she had a bad result. And last year, when I, in 2019, in the month of July, went to see this psychiatrist that was what my current doctor had said was my only hope to clear that label off my medical file as being a lie. I spoke of not only Peter Breggin, Dr. Peter Breggin, or Dr. Peter Gotch. Why am I saying it that way? I don't know why. I guess because I'm looking at my image in the... so anyway, and Robert Whitaker, I said that to that psychiatrist, and the result of saying that, and I think the 15-minute interview, or a little bit over 15-minute interview that I had with this psychiatrist, who was not kindly disposed towards me from the get-go, was for him to, and I think it's directly it's connected completely to the fact that I said that Dr. Peter Breggin was right, that these psych drugs do harm. So he put in that report that I had personality disorder unspecified, or unspecified personality disorder. Well, what can you expect from a psychiatrist but a psychiatric diagnosis? You go in, it's a psychiatrist, what are you expecting? But, what does he do? Lands you with a label.
although I had seen him years before, and I had a longer interview with him, and he hadn't written a report. In fact, he had forgotten about me entirely. That's why I had to go back and see him again. So I'd seen him in 2015, and he forgot about it. He forgot that I even existed. So I had to see him again 4 years later, which was 2019. And still I wasn't satisfied. I'm not satisfied. No, why would anybody be satisfied with errors as blatant as that? Falling off a horse. I didn't fall off a horse. I was still on him when he was flattening me. I was still in the saddle. Yeah, my leg was underneath, my left leg, the one that's all banged up. Yeah, I don't think I will be flipping my device around or even lifting my leg, but who knows? I just might lift it up to the camera. I don't know. That would be something. Anyway, yeah, it's my lower left leg, and the foot is deformed as well. It's shortened, and in fact, my height was shortened. So my current doctor is looking forward to the time when he will measure me again, and I will be my full stature of 5 feet 6 inches. Because currently, right now, I'm 5'5 3/4". Is that right? Yeah. So we'll see if I gained 1/4 of an inch. I think I will have. When the time comes for me to be measured again, when I say, okay, go. Because I will feel that I have lifted it up adequately for a measurement to be taken. Of course, I've got problems with my neck. At the base of my skull, there's bruising there. So who knows? Yeah, I'll be working at that 5 feet 6 inches that I was supposed to be for I don't know how long. Well, we shall see. As far as I know, I'm losing weight, which is good. Because when you have pain and you're not really getting help for it, food is your medication of choice, I'll tell you. So you see people who are hurt by something, say an accident or anything physical or skeletal, they pack on the pounds. But that's me moving painfully. I have my legs up because I always have to have my legs up when I sit. So when you go to a doctor that you're seeing and talk about what Dr. Peter Breggin says, a word of caution. You could end up in a bad result, a very bad result. But I'm hoping that with the wealth of evidence in new films that are being made about harmful psych drugs, harmful medications, the devilish plan of the Rockefellers and Big Pharma, that we'll have more current family doctors rethinking prescribing psychiatric medication to people. I hope they don't feel too much guilt for the prescriptions that they've already written to patients. you can only do what you know to do, right? And these doctors have been educated in universities, colleges, schools that were funded by Big Pharma, and all they were taught was what to prescribe. And so Big Pharma overtook the schools just like John D. Rockefeller wanted, and all those alternative methods of healing were dismissed and ridiculed, and kind of still are. I saw this Montreal doctor, Joe Schwartz, who people in Montreal would say, "Wow, what a wonderful man," and I can't stand to listen to him, because he did say what. Okay, I was watching this program on the Canal Savoir, the Knowledge Channel, and I saw him speaking on a panel, and him say to a doctor who was from the United States, "So what if vaccines cause brain injury? So what if autism results from vaccines?" I might not be quoting him verbatim, but an awful lot of what he says is complete hubris. Okay, so I've mentioned his name. And he always talks about how McGill is loved overseas. Like, McGill? Don't talk to me about McGill University. My mother's alma mater. She was so pleased when I enrolled there. She wanted me home with her, and so I bussed from the South Shore to downtown in the 80s and even in the 90s. In the 80s, 1982, I started at the age of 20 in the religious studies, and I was in my second year, and what they were giving me as information there was bothersome, to say the least. And at home, my mother's drinking was worse than ever. There was hardly any food in the house when I would get home, so I was getting really skinny. I mean, there's only so much cocktail food that you can eat, you know? Pig's tongues and caviar and sliced octopus. Yeah, you know, it's just not food for eating. I guess she just forgot. You know, by that time, so I would be 22 or 23, and that time I think I was already thinking that I would take a year off from university, just a year, and I needed to get out of Mom's home, the house where I came into as a newborn, because Mom was falling asleep in the upholstered armchair in the really nice living room that she had put together with her own money, wall-to-wall green carpeting and velvet covered seats and so on. But she was a smoker, and I was finding that I was coming home late. There would be no food, and I would have to keep vigil over Mom because we had our pets in the house, and who knew if we'd have a house fire, because she was falling asleep and lighting fires on the arm of the velvet armchair in front of the TV. I noticed that she'd be watching repeat episodes of MASH, the program MASH with Ellen Elda, Henry Morgan and all the greats. And I noticed that she could see, or she was watching 4 half-hour programs back to back. But what she was watching was the repeat of the first program that she saw in the second viewing. So she'd seen what she was watching an hour before, as if it was new. And that's the state of my mother's brain on, well, she was drinking in front of me, of course. She'd been drinking in front of me for years and years. Her big glass with her ice cubes in it of Johnnie Walker whiskey. Can you just think about, by the time I was 14, every single day she was getting 2 regular bottles of Johnnie Walker whiskey per day and a Mickey. And I don't know how much she was drinking. By the time I was in my early 20s, but I just knew it was out of hand. And by that time, I didn't think that I had it in me to save my mother. And it was a huge decision to make, to take a year off from university, leave my mother's home, and get a job downtown, and start working to support myself, and room with 2 other girls who I knew from McGill, who were still going to McGill in religious studies. And then, as my adventuresome self would see, a lot of rapid change happened in my life. But I started working at a record store, which no longer exists, called Sam the Record Man. And I worked there for 4 years. So I started there in 1984, and I was on my own. And it's possible that the family tree that I'm in, the living family members, harken back to the fact that I stopped my 3-year enrollment at McGill after 2.5 years to leave Mom's home and live in town. And I think that there's a great deal of resentment for thinking that I had no gratitude to my mother for paying for that education that I got. Now the thing is I did enroll at McGill again, but this time it was 1990, and I was newly married to a man I'd known since kindergarten. So that's a long time in school, having known this person. But I didn't really know him. But at that time, in 1989, I'd already begun to be drugged on these psychiatric medications. And I could say his marriage proposal was more or less, well, who else would have you now that you're bipolar or manic depressive? My mother was manic depressive, and I know how to take care of you. Yeah, who else would have you? Yeah, Mom read that and didn't like it. Nor should I have liked it. Anyway, I couldn't feel my body on those medications, so they started out on trazodone, and it got worse and worse. And of course, he saw it got worse and worse. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about here is that in 1982, by 1983, I was doing undergraduate work. I was doing graduate work. My friends were graduates in the religious studies. I was doing graduate work at the undergrad level in religious studies. Then, in 1990, it was communally decided that I use these credits to go into Mom's concentration of education, only this time early childhood. Oh my God, was that ever a disaster? I was surprised that I was making such low marks. But there you go. This is what these drugs do. They mutilate the brain. They ruin cognition. You're not smart. And not only that, I was numbed. I couldn't feel how injured my body was. So, how brainless was I? So, yeah, I guess I caused other professors to be tearing at their hair. And I could see who were the kind ones and who were the ones who just had no time for someone so idiotic. And of course, when you're on them, you don't know you're idiotic, do you? No. Spellbound. You don't know that you're idiotic. But it gets worse. It gets worse. The longer that you're on these drugs, the more ill-behaved you'll become. Stunningly ill-behaved, and a change in personality, a stark change in personality. So I have quite a history to go into of how I was compromised by these drugs, because I've got all of my 30s to talk about. And yeah, now I remember an awful lot of it. I remember quite a bit before I was drugged. So the competence that I had as a young person in my 20s, and I started working at Sound the Record Man in 1984. So that beginning time, I was seen as someone who could do graduate work at the undergraduate level. But on those drugs, same person, in 1990, I was a huge frustration to the professors. In fact, there was one professor, justifiably, who put me out of his class immediately. Actually, that was my third attempt at McGill, because I got married a second time, and that mother-in-law that I had gifted me with money to return to McGill. So I had another maybe semester where at that time the frustration of the professor was beyond, and wouldn't even allow me to sit in the class, justifiably so. I'm sure. I don't know what I was doing, but obviously there was something that was distracting that shouldn't be done. So out. Yeah. And not long after that, I just left. And I remember speaking with the administrator in admissions office to quit, and my then cocaine riddled husband, who was 9 years younger than me. Just imagine the con of this guy, He even became a Mormon in order to marry me. He even became a Mormon. I was a Mormon. I was a Mormon in my intoxicated state. So this would have to be 1999, I think, where I enrolled at McGill again for a semester that didn't happen. So we were sitting in that office, and I was saying, that I had to leave, and that then quote unquote husband, not even, said, "Oh, she's a schizophrenic." To which I said, "Oh, I'm a schizophrenic." So it had to be 1999, because that's what I was then called, a schizophrenic. See, I started out as being labeled manic depressive, and I was labeled manic depressive because of family history, because of a grandfather who was gassed in the war, Justin McGrath, whose portrait frame photo I look too often and speak too often, because I understand him like nobody's business. He was gassed, and he became a drinker, self-medicating, and he would have huge mood swings. My grandmother couldn't stay with him, and the result of that actually was that my mother and her sister, my aunt, did not go to their father's funeral. They hated him so much. But I understand the man so much now. He was in World War One. He operated the artillery. It was said that he was in the cavalry, but I haven't seen any evidence of that online. When I've looked online, there is his enlistment form that I had at one point. I think that was stolen by my sister in my last my former Facebook account that was stolen. And it was stolen because I was naive and believing in this idea that I was about to have the money that I have been focusing on for so long. Anyway, I was naive, and I lost that Facebook account. Well, you live and learn, right? And the truth of it is that my new Facebook account has stunningly more friends than ever. I don't have the friends that I had on my first Facebook account, and I miss them. They were people that I sang with in the choir, but I'm sure they don't miss me. Almost sure they don't miss me. Well, it can be said they don't miss me. Yeah, I've had to focus on healing these injuries, because I just went like the ever ready battery rabbit, and that wasn't helping. So I was living in Pierrefonds, and I was taking the train, and managing those huge doors for each car. That was totally counterproductive. The train was smooth, but those doors were killers. So I needed to focus on healing my body. Oh yeah, what else is fascinating is that at that United Church where I sang in the choir, the minister and the people that he brought in, the doctor, internist, and his wife, the head nurse, their perceptions were influenced by the lie on my medical file. So I remember being in the minister's office and him saying, well, I suppose you're integrating those personalities now and you're far more cohesive. I was never mentally ill, okay? It was the drugs. But anyway, and I remember the internist doctor, and I know that this man and his wife, the head nurse, were Satanists. I know that. She outed herself to me. Yep. I know what they were. Anyway, I made a bit of a faux pas, which was on stage kind of, because the choir loft was behind the minister and I was in the choir loft, and I was surprised by some kind of surprise drama that was already orchestrated that I didn't know. And my then boyfriend told me what was up, and it was all on display for the congregation to see. And this internist let out a loud guffaw because he thought I was really funny. So, yeah, being laughed at. Just wait, she's going to show some kind of a psychotic whatever. Something stupid, huh? No. My issue is I got pain. Pain that I wasn't focusing on as a priority, and now I am. And, so will I lift this leg? See, yeah, hey, I've gone on, I think, even longer than usual. So it's the light at this time is pretty glorious because it's dappled light coming through my windows and cathedral like stained glass, like light coming through stained glass almost. It makes for strange pulses of lighting in my room. Now, will I show you? I don't know. That's my foot. That's twisted muscle. Collapsed veins. That's my other foot, which is pretty good. So the left one was underneath the animal. The massive hybrid draft horse named Grand Blanc. Big white. It is a miracle that I walked away from that. An absolute miracle. Why? What happened. And I was still walking. As my future self looking back, not myself now, but someone I can speculate in the future, will say it was all worth it because I've learned very important lessons. The paramount one is that psych drugs cause brain damage and should not be used. The next one is neuroplasticity is real and we can heal our brain off psych drugs. Moreover, our thoughts do become things, so we can heal our bodies. We can visualize ourselves well, also do those practical things that I was going to speak of before, which I found in tandem with Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, was the book Cellular. See, my mouth hurts all the time, eh? I'm navigating with these things. Cellular Awakening by Barbara Wren, and she's got a school of natural nutrition in the UK. So she's out of the UK, and her book has been a huge blessing to me because of the practical methods of healing that she outlines. And in her book, she also is accurate about not only how to heal, but why our modern medicine is not helpful, is actually harmful. So I just love her too. Before Louise Hay died, I know that she herself responded to me directly. She had a birthday, and I was one of those who said to her, congratulations. It could have been her 89th birthday, maybe even 88. But I knew it was, she'd seen me say, "Thank you so much. Your book helped me save my own life," back in 2002. With that toxic load in me, had I not had her book, I might not be alive right now. It was that much of a game changer. When I realized that rewiring my brain could not only heal my body, but also heal my experiences. Because my experiences on that toxic shite, those psych drugs, those chemicals that numb your brain, as I've quoted Dr. Catherine Horton, who's a particle physicist, journalist, saying that psych drugs are neurotoxins which mutilate the brain and reduce life expectancy by a third. Well, yeah, psych drugs mutilate the brain. They kill brain cells. But it is evident that neuroplasticity can happen at any age. At any age, when you take charge of your own life, you don't have to have those prognoses come true. And we have a lot more information coming in. During my lifetime, I think before the age of 40, it was accepted that the brain, the aging brain, gets worse and worse and worse and cannot be healed. But I'm in league with the professor out of California, whose name is Marion Diamond, who was still working as professor. Was it Berkeley? Anyway, she was still working as a professor, teaching about neuroplasticity and so on. You know, I know that we are co-creators of our experience with Source. Could I be more clear? We have all the tools within ourselves to create the lives that we would prefer for ourselves. Our reality is malleable. It's simplified, and rather too simple, but what we think about, we bring about. So I think that's more prevalent today. People do know that, and they are taking that to the bank. So we have the internet, and more people on the internet saying that there are ways that we can benefit our lives, and yet we have this other side where you've got the television and there are ads about some kind of new psych drug. They come out with the strangest names, my goodness. Yeah, so they're still promoting their drugs, and people are still taking their drugs. And there are more people on those drugs than not. This is what our global status is. But those who have survived psychiatry, and in fact, before even having a Facebook account, I saw that there was a woman who was alive online. She was being talked about, who had been drugged and tortured and escaped Nazi experimentation and drugging. And she was a force to reckon with. I don't remember her name because that was a long time ago. I can see her face. I guess that's where I have my forte. Yeah, like Vishen. Oh, Mind Valley. There we go. Mind Valley. Vishen, Mind Valley. Yeah, he's a very important person. Gonna get more and more important. Great, great people. Awesome people. Yeah, so our world is changing, and yet we've got people who love their psych drugs. They love them. They're dying to love them. There's more truth in that. Kind of icky to have to say it, but they're not going to live very long. Neither, indeed, is the friend of mine who is dear to my heart, who I haven't heard from in recent years. Gosh, I never knew that I'd be such a white person. I didn't see that coming, but oh well, it is what it is. I resemble my father more than I never thought. And, yeah. There's some things that Mom was accurate on, you know? She saw them. Yeah, she saw them accurately in her stupefied state. And she was functional in her stupefied state. So I guess you can function on these benzodiazepines. Depends on how many psych drugs you're on, I think. So, happy birthday, Mom. I love you with all my heart. You're my number one biggest love, and you know it.